My name is Megan James, and I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in and welcome to the Megan James Show. So the purpose of our show is to provide personal development, ideas, advice, and tips, as well as business help and advice to entrepreneurs. We are so passionate about helping our local businesses, so most of our interviews are actually with local successful business owners. And when I say local, they're local to the Kernersville, Triad, North Carolina area. So we want to boost the local economy as well as provide real actionable advice for you guys, our listeners, the future and current business owners listening to this show. So without further ado, here's our show. What is up, everybody? It's Megan James. Thanks for joining us live on the Megan James Show. I'm so excited to have you guys here today. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. And as most of you probably know, because you're here for a reason, you probably listened to the other 3. This is part 4 of a 5-part series called Mastering Your Relationship. So if you haven't listened to the other 3 parts, please go check those out now. And I'm sure most of you have noticed I've not gotten all of the PDF workbooks up on our Patreon page. So if you've been looking for those, yes, I'm behind. And I seriously apologize. I have a bunch of surprises for you guys in the works, and I've been trying to work on all of them at one time. And as it turns out, that has not been going as well as I'd hoped. So that being said, the workbooks are in the works and you will have them before you know. In the meantime, I want to kind of review. We stopped at step 18 on this last podcast. So step 18 talked about looking after yourself. I saved the best for last. I told you that. But basically just making sure that instead of concentrating all of your energy on your partner, you're also focusing on yourself. So you're looking after yourself. You're making sure that, instead of just trying to meet all of your partner's needs, that you meet all of your needs. So, a lot of tension is caused in the relationship when you start expecting your partner to provide things for you, like comfort and financial security and things that you were doing on your own. Hopefully before you met your partner, you were paying your rent, you were taking care of your dogs or your kids, you were cleaning your house, you were paying your bills, you were doing all of these things before you met your current partner. And you also probably had some self-care along the way. You took long baths if that's your thing. You went to the gym if that's your thing. If you read a lot, or you just took care of yourself. The things that make you feel good, you did those things. And when we get in a relationship, we become so focused on our other partner that sometimes we forget those self-care steps to take. So step 18 in our previous episode talked about taking care of yourself and looking after yourself. So moving on to step 19. So after learning to look after yourself, the next step forward is to learn to ask for what you want. So many relationships would be much easier if couples would only ask rather than expect the other to guess. Isn't that true, though? What you think is obvious, say you want a hug, for example, probably isn't obvious at all. So when your partner does what he or she thinks you want, instead, maybe leaving you alone instead of hugging you, you feel upset and angry. Guys, they can't look up your ass and read your mind. You've got to make your intentions or your wants and needs known to your partner. Your partner can't understand what he or she did wrong, and the spiral of disappointment continues. Wouldn't it have been just so much easier and simpler if you just asked for a hug in the first place? So, here's an exercise. See how many of these actually apply to you. Why don't most of us ask for what we want? Let's talk about some reasons for that. We don't know what we want, so we can't ask for it. We're afraid we won't get it. We think we don't deserve it. We think we've got to earn it by pleasing the other person first. We think it won't be special if we've had to ask for it. So do any of those apply to you? Very few people know how to ask for what they want regularly and really feel good about it. Most of us have a big resistance to asking in general. I know I did. for jobs, not just even relationships even, but for like jobs. I hated asking for things. Like I get to a new job and I need a pen, and I was like, fuck, I need to steal a pen. Not really steal it, you know what I mean? I need to like borrow somebody's pen or borrow somebody's scissors because I don't want to ask for my own. Just ridiculous stuff because I felt like I was inconveniencing the other person if I asked. Well, this is the same kind of thing. The reason why we don't ask for what we want is because we feel like it's an inconvenience to the other person sometimes. But just like any other kind of behavior, requesting what you want is a habit that you can cultivate simply by being willing to do it over and over and over again until it becomes easy and familiar. Remember that people who love you are usually more than willing to give you what you want if they can. So let's go over a few ways on how to ask for what you want. A few tips, some exercises to try, things like that. Number 1, remember that people who love you are usually more than willing to give you what you want if they can. Number 2, consider some of the things you want. Chances are they're really quite simple. You overthink more than you know. Number 3, practice asking in a direct but warm way. Avoid whining, pleading, cajoling, or flattering. Number 4, be willing to settle for some of what you want. Abandon the idea that you have to have it all. Number 5, remember that it's a real relief for the other person when you say what you want. He or she can finally stop guessing, and it saves a lot of energy and a lot of stress. Trust me, grief, stress, and energy and time spent on trying to figure out what it is that you actually want. You can save everyone the hardship if you just tell them. Number 6, if your partner says no, accept that that's an answer, not a rejection of you, but that they simply can't do it for his or her own reasons. Number 7, learn how to receive graciously. When you do get what you want, show him or her how appreciative you are and then enjoy it. Don't use it as an excuse to trigger off a guilt trip or decide you have to give your partner double what he or she has given you, because sometimes we have this urge to overcompensate for what we've been given because we feel like we're not worthy of it. You are worthy of what you asked for, but just show that you're appreciative of it. That's enough. Your partner will understand your needs and want to give you the things you want. Sometimes receiving can be a lot harder than giving, so remind yourself that you deserve it and just relax. Once you both get the hang of it, asking for what you want can bring you closer together. So go on, give it a try. Just remember, be brave and generous and ask for what you want. Moving on to step 20, always be you. Too often in a relationship, we lose track of who we are. We are so busy focusing on the other person or on being part of a couple that suddenly we can't find our own identity. A successful relationship is not about being half of a whole, but about two wholes coming together in harmony. So it's important to keep your individual identity strong and not to feel that something of the essential you has been lost. So let's talk about some signs of loss of identity. I'm going to discuss a few, and you just check off any that ring true for you. Number 1, you can't make decisions about anything, even which film you'd like to see, without consulting your partner. Another example would be going out to eat, trying to find a location, anything like that. Number 2, you feel weird going to social events by yourself. Number 3, you never arrange to do things without your partner if you can help it. Number 4, you always shop together. Number 5, if your partner is away for just one night, you panic. Number 6, you don't enjoy your own company. Number 7, you've stopped doing things that you used to enjoy because your partner doesn't want to do them. Number 8, you would rather be with your partner than without him or her, even if it means going to an event or joining in an activity that you don't even like. Number 9, you use the word we more often than the word I. Number 10, you can't imagine life without your partner. If he or she died, you'd have to die too. So, do any of those sound familiar to you? Are you so immersed in this coupledom that the mere thought of being just me or I makes you feel afraid and lonely? If so, it's time to stop combining your identity with your partner's. You can learn to stand on your own 2 feet without losing that closeness that you share. So let's talk about being yourself while staying in love. What are some things that you can do to keep your own identity separate from your partner's, to remain you in the relationship? Number 1, nurture friendships that are just yours. Make dates to see your friends regularly without your partner. Number 2, set aside time to do what you enjoy. Spend at least one night a week on an activity that you enjoy. Whether that's yoga, photography, rock climbing, kickboxing, going to see a movie with friends, wine night, whatever. Just something that doesn't involve your partner. Number 3, exercise your decision-making and opinion muscles. So frequently ask yourself, what do I think about this? What would I like to do right now? What am I craving to eat tonight? What kind of evening out would suit me? This doesn't mean you always have to have your way, but it helps you to know what you think and what you want. So when it comes down to you and your partner picking a place to eat that night, if your partner really doesn't feel like they know what they want, you do. Being sure of yourself can really guide you guys down a better and stronger path, and it will encourage your partner to know themselves as well. Number 4, make sure that there are times when you don't think or talk about your partner. Don't go out with friends and then talk only about your partner. Instead, just discuss life. Politics, be careful with that one. Fashion, books, music, TV, shows that you guys like, activities that you're enjoying. Are you taking any new group fitness classes? Anything that helps you branch out of just talking about your partner. Number 5, don't automatically do everything with your partner. If you bathe together too often, it may stop being special. Keep the buzz by rationing some of the things you do together so that they still remain special rather than routine. So think about when you first started dating. What were some things that you guys did together that were super special at the time? Whether they give you butterflies or it's just something you really looked forward to. Was it a date night out, a movie night, bowling? I don't know. What was it that you just were so excited about? Think about that and start making that a special occasion. Something that you guys have to look forward to, not just a routine. Number 6, don't do what your partner wants to just be with your partner. If asked to go along to a football game or a yoga class, don't just trail along if you don't actually enjoy it. You don't have to go. If your partner is hell-bent on going to a bookstore at 9 a.m. on a Saturday and your ass just wants to stay in bed, stay in bed if that's what you want to do. You don't have to go to the bookstore. Stand up for yourself and do the things that make you happy. Keep your life interesting, and it will keep you interesting too. Make sure that you always have enough to talk about and that you do some things on your own. Never take togetherness too far. Always believe that if you lost your partner, you would be strong enough to go on with a fulfilling, enriching life. No couples know how long they have together, but believing that you would cope alone will make you happier and stronger now. If you believe in your subconscious that your life is going to be over if something happens to your partner, it's going to leave you living your life now in fear. And fear leads to misery, guys. Be at peace with your present. Stop worrying about the things that haven't happened yet and may never happen. Just be yourself and stay whole and stay happy. Step 21, know your boundaries. So a boundary is like a limit. It's a line that should not be crossed, a point which is as far as you can comfortably go. In relationships, just as in life, we need boundaries. They help us feel safe, comfortable, and whole, and they define who we are. Boundaries are neither good nor bad. Everyone's are different, and we choose them simply because they feel right for us. Whether we are aware of them or not, we all have them. However, many of us have weak or absent boundaries in certain areas, and this can actually lead to feelings of being easily overwhelmed, stressed, and even resentful. So, if you're not sure if you have weak boundaries, let's take a little quiz. See if any of the following apply to you. Some signs of weak or missing boundaries are: you decide on an activity, but then change your mind because your partner asks you to do something else. For example, you're planning a night in, reading a good book until your partner asks you to go out. You don't want to go, but you do anyways. Or you make a mutual rule or promise, but then break it or ignore your partner breaking it. For example, say you decide not to take telephone calls after midnight, and you tell your partner. Then you answer the telephone as usual when a friend calls at 1 a.m. a few days later. Or you promise to stop smoking, but then you carry on smoking. It's like a promise. A promise is your word. If you break a promise, people lose trust in you. So this can all go back to that whole trust in your relationship thing. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say that you're going to establish a boundary with phone calls, no phone calls after 10 p.m., don't accept any phone calls after 10 p.m. I promise you, no emergency is a real emergency. I've never had anyone call me in the middle of the night with an actual, true, honest to God emergency that my presence there was suddenly going to solve the entire thing. Emergencies, for most people, are something dreamed up in their minds. They're an exaggeration of an actual event. So, guard your time with your partner, and set your boundaries. All right, a third example or sign of weak or missing boundaries. You decide that certain behavior is unacceptable, but then you accept it. So, for example, you tell your partner that you'll leave your partner if he or she hits you, but then it happens and you stay. This is a big one. First off, your partner should never hit you. But secondly, this is something that occurs daily in domestic violence relationships. And I don't want you guys to end up in relationships like that. I want you to recognize issues now. And if they can be corrected, correct them. But if you need to call it quits, guys, you need to call it quits. And I'm all for, working through your hardships, working through your issues. But sometimes we're just not compatible on a certain level, and that holds the relationship back. So we have to recognize that. All right, so we're going to move on to an exercise here. I want you to try to define your boundaries, establishing new ones if you need them. Then make a promise to actually keep them in place. You don't need hundreds of boundaries. Too many can actually be as bad as too few. But the ones you do put in place must be right and must be important for you. When fixing your boundaries, remember a couple of points. First, other people will always test your boundaries. So if you hold the line, they're going to respect you and know you mean what you say. But if you don't, they'll know you're a pushover. Second, be prepared to stick to your boundaries. Don't make one and know you're going to break it because you're going to feel that you can't trust yourself. For these two reasons, choose boundaries that are important enough to keep. So for example, pick an issue that's been bothering you and decide where the boundary needs to be. You'll soon discover how good it feels to stick to your decision, even when your partner tests you by trying to break it. So, a boundary for me is I have to work out. I have to work out at least daily. I'm allowed to skip one day in between, but I need to be working out daily. And that's my boundary. That possible day off is a rest day. That accounts for that day that I need. But, for the most part, I don't let anything test that. I don't let, last minute scheduling conflicts with friends change that. I don't let anything change that. Unless we're like, we've been in the hospital with a relative before. That's different. That's the only time that, serious issues, if they come up, that's the only time. But even then, you have to be very, very, very careful and cautious about what you choose to allow to break that. Because things that seem huge that you allow as an excuse to break that promise, you'll start accepting smaller and smaller things as time goes on. So it'll become something from, we're only going to skip working out tonight if, Grandma Jenkins is in the hospital. Well, then it becomes, we're only going to skip tonight if Marley says she needs me to babysit the kid. And then we're only going to skip tonight if that show's on Netflix. And you see, it just progresses into more, the less important excuses. So, moral of the story here is keep your boundaries and trust yourself to mean what you say. All right, moving on to step 22, talking about responsibility. To keep your love strong, both partners in a relationship need to be responsible. If your reaction to this is, oh my God, that's so boring, think again. Being responsible doesn't just mean paying your bills and buying the groceries. It actually runs way deeper than that. So true love entails being willing to take responsibility. That means acting in a consistent and appropriate way. And when we do this, we create deep and meaningful bonds. Few things kill love faster than a total lack of responsibility on the part of either partner. If you've ever been affected by this, you'll know how true this is. Those who behave irresponsibly are willing to let others down, to burden others, to use others as cover, to create problems, and to cause hurt. There's no place for any of this in a strong and healthy relationship. So take a look at your relationship. Are you being irresponsible, or are you putting up with your partner's irresponsible behavior? Let's talk about some ways that you can strengthen your levels of responsibility. Number 1, always behave in a way of which you can be proud. Identify areas of behavior that cause you shame and clean those up. Number 2, remember that love and responsibility actually go together. You can't claim to love someone without being willing to behave responsibly towards them. Number 3, responsibility begins with yourself. Are you looking after and nurturing yourself? Are you getting enough rest, good food, exercise? You won't be able to respond appropriately to the demands of life and your relationship unless you're fulfilling the basic responsibilities to yourself. Number 4, behaving responsibly towards your partner means doing what you've said you'll do and keeping your half of any agreements made. It doesn't mean fussing, fixing, or smothering your partner. Sometimes the responsible act is to step back and let him or her sort out his or her own mess. Number 5, when deciding what your responsibilities are, the key word is quote unquote appropriate. Use this as a measure to ensure that you don't overdo it. So let's talk about some things if the irresponsible person is your partner. What are some things that you can do? So let's talk about if the irresponsible person is your partner. We're going to go over some ways in which you can handle that. Number 1, let your partner feel the consequences of his or her actions. In other words, don't always cover up for him or her, rescue him or her from fixes of his or her own making, or do something that he or she really should do for him or herself. Stand back and let them deal with whatever happens. Number 2, make your own boundaries clear. Let your partner know what you will and won't do and what you expect from them. Don't drone on and just say it once and then leave it. Number 3, decide whether you really want to be around someone who is consistently irresponsible. You may want to withdraw partially or wholly rather than live with behavior that causes problems for you. Number 4, if the irresponsibility is just in specific areas, tackle them by making the consequences clear. For example, if your partner always arrives very late to meet you, let him or her know that you will wait 10 minutes before leaving that location. Tackling irresponsibility is an exciting challenge. It actually means being willing to stand up and be counted, to set your boundaries, and to acknowledge the powerful connection between responsibility and love. So just be responsible and feel good about who you are. Step 23, the green-eyed monster, also known as jealousy. So jealousy is undermining and destructive. Everyone's jealous from time to time, but consistent jealousy causes deep rifts in a relationship. Today is the day to examine the role jealousy plays in your own personal relationship. Are you or your partner consistently jealous? Is jealousy an issue between you? If so, it's time to do something about it. If either of you is experiencing feelings of jealousy, ask yourself, is there a reason? Is one of you causing it by behaving inappropriately? Sometimes all the blame is laid on the partner who is jealous when the other partner has played a part in the actual problem itself. Are you both behaving in a trustworthy and appropriate way? So if you have any questions about that, review our previous episode on trust. We go over a lot of ways to determine if there's trust issue in your relationships and how to combat those trust issues. Are you putting your partner first? Not flirting or spending too much time with other people, and treating one another with care, respect, and consideration? Tackle these areas and the jealousy should disappear. If jealousy continues to be a problem, the root may be insecurity and low self-esteem. We also went over that previously. So like I said, guys, if you haven't listened to our other episodes in this series, go back and listen to them, because we did talk about how insecurity and self-esteem can play a major part in crippling your relationship or building it up. So let's talk about some ways to deal with your jealousy. Begin to build up your self-esteem and sense of self-worth. The stronger these are, the less jealous you'll be. Talk to yourself in positive ways. Appreciate all the good in what you are and what you do, and be kind to yourself. Talk to your partner about the problems. Ask for his or her support in dealing with it, and discuss particular triggers for your jealousy. Your partner may be able to offer help at these times.